there's the sort of suburban authoritarian is one circle here, but in this Venn diagram of people who genuinely love Trump and think that he's admirable, another huge circle, and it does overlap a bit, is evangelicals.
Yeah, I was
evangelicals love Trump, and that's why he has an 87% approval rating among Republicans right now. And I know we talked about this last time, but
that's just because we love an authoritarian.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. And I was thinking, we talked about it last time, but I was still thinking about Scott Pruitt this week as like the perfect manifestation of like evangelical dork. like all these like controversies about him like sending his staffers to get him fancy lotions and mattresses and shit.
It's just like living like some 19th century duke in DC.
But all I could think of, but not even that, because what he's getting is like the shit that like is just like upscale consumer product. Like I was just thinking, what a fucking rube this guy is with his challenge coins.
Put the siren on.
Yeah. It's just like he goes from Oklahoma, where he's from, to
Nebraska.
He's
from Oklahoma.
Oh, Oklahoma.
Right? Okay,
Yeah.
he goes from Oklahoma to Washington. He gets to be in DC and like, just live like some sort of fancy guy now and like get all the good stuff and like, but at the same time, because of he is a diehard evangelical. He's in charge of the EPA, which just this week recently just classed an entire swath of carcinogenic chemicals as officially not dangerous and okay to like put in, municipal water supplies or whatever. And like he's
gotta put it somewhere.
He's presiding over like the stewardship of the apocalypse, which for them is fine because they believe that like but we
think the apocalypse is a good thing.
Well, they think the apocalypse is a good thing, but also
and that's why we have to tolerate the Jews.
Yeah, but also,
or at least just don't let them stop you from achieving your goals.
Exactly.
Yeah, but that we can despoil all of the environment and every natural resource, and it doesn't matter because
we get a new one.
Yeah,
God
we're literally
is in control.
Get a new one.
Right, when we're done with this earth,
that God gave man stewardship of the earth, and that what that means is to literally extract every fucking resource from it until it is a burnt out husk.
Right. It's their ultimate vision of Earth, like, and that concept of stewardship is like, oh, I'm Earth's customer.
Yeah, exactly. And this goes back to this Noah's Ark thing. Is that we're literally causing the floodwaters to rise. Couldn't be more pleased with it.
Right.
They just know they have a seat on that ark, and that's what
it's literally the apocalypse. The world is definitely ending, and that's definitely a good thing. That is written into what like my grandparents believe. Although they didn't vote for Trump, they don't vote.
Well, that is the classic.
They stopped voting after there was no longer a miners' union candidate. But I always said that if I wanted to explain this kind of evangelical nihilism, I would make a playlist, and maybe I'll actually do this, like a Spotify playlist of songs that I grew up hearing in my grandparents' church. And they are all about how awesome it's going to be when the world ends, when we die, because they can't conceive of a place, and these are poor evangelicals too. These are not the bougie ones. They can't conceive of a time or place on earth where you're not in incredible pain. It's just not in their imagination. All they can do is just be like, but someday I'll die. It'll be great. And that has shaped the entire like ethos of it. So of course, when there's no future, you're begging for the end.
Scott Pruitt is no longer in pain because he has excellent mattresses and lotions now. So he feels wonderful.
Yeah,
he's moisturized.
I think that like a big part of that evangelical mindset is it's sort of split in two. You have the poor ones and then you have the rich ones, and they both.
It's weird. It's the only like kind of cross-class belief system. They both believe the same dumb American dream, whether it's working for them or not.
Right. And the sort of theological underpinnings of extremely harsh Protestantism, it's the same thing for the rich and poor, but it means different things to them. What is like one of the core tenets of Protestantism as it began? It was that we don't need as many clergy because it's between you and God. Like, yeah, you can have a guy who's giving you his sermon, blah, 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 but it's between you and God. No one's going to tell you what to do. And
It
for
started out as an anti-bureaucracy, anti-hierarchy.
Exactly.
I mean, there's good elements to it. Even now,
Right.
like the Pope is like, Martin Luther had some points.
right,
Bill
right.
Clinton's were bad.
So, but for the rich ones, instead of if you just look at that independent of everything else, you're like, well, that's a good message. It should be like this thing
Something
between
intimate
you
and
and what
personal.
you feel. But for the rich ones, what it means now and what it has always meant for the rich ones is like, yeah, no, I'm in charge. I'm the clergy.
Right.
I get to decide
Yeah.
who's bad.
And
Yeah.
my God knows my heart and knows
Right.
that like I would never have participated in a long running kidnapping scheme for bad reasons.
But the lower ones, like the lower ones, their interpretation of it is like, well, okay, like less people in between me and the end of this suffering. The lower ones buttress the mega churches and the existence of the more rich evangelicals, like the North Carolina evangelicals, the Virginia evangelicals, because you need this mass of millions of people who are like, yeah, no, I don't have to like see another guy about what I have to do. It's not like going to the DMV or something. I could just listen to this man in a Hawaiian shirt who like give me what is basically a seminar about how to be my best. And the rich ones are like, well, yeah, thank you for kicking in. I'm going to listen to the same guy tell me about how I basically am God. But
You can see how a few centuries of market forces can turn it from something that like maybe did have a theology to just being like, again, like some dude in shorts using Bible quotes to prove that whatever you're doing is
Absolutely.
right.
It's more vulnerable to market incentives than anything else
Yeah.
because it's a product of the modern American state.
Right.
I think about Rick Warren so much. Like Rick Warren is like he's like the Spielberg of evangelicals. Like so much so that
That could go a lot of directions.
well, I
Be
guess
careful.
well, if Nick was here, he would say that. But because I'm fascinated by evangelicals. I watch a lot of like evangelical sermons on YouTube, and I like his because he so toes that line between seminar and theology. And when he was up that, like I saw this one where he's like, now when you're done with this course called Finding God to Be the Better You, and it's like this is LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is incredible. Like,
Scientology without the action, like as you move up the bridge closer to your personal experience
Because
of your savior.
it's
I mean,
hierarchy.
that's why Jordan Peterson is caught on. People say it's the self-help thing. The self-help people learned it from an extremely commercialized Protestant church.
Exactly. And, Catholics, a few things wrong there, maybe. But there is something
Few
sort of
bad apples.
few bad apples. There is something a little bit admirable about how they still go in there and they're literally still trying to talk to ghosts or whatever the fuck they do. It's still like, at least there's like even the pretense of God here.
Yeah, the United States.
Not enough
it's
snakes.
a fuse-
Not nearly enough snakes for my taste.
the fusion in the United States of Protestantism, capitalism, and then just all of this land that this is here somehow. This giant continent full of land you can just kind of grab big chunks of.
Easy
No
to
one
mistake
really-
that for some sort
No.
of like prophecy too.
Yeah,
right?
no one really. Wow, it's weird. There's all this. Where did everyone go? Like, wow, I guess I'll have some of it. Those three things combined this created this culture of just absolute, a religiously infused narcissism that insists upon personal control and is insanely, violently hostile to any conception of limitations on your ambitions or personal desires.
It goes further than that, though. Like the idea of providence and the idea of like we have these things because God says we should have these things. You can go back to the primary document of settling Puritans who had this exact, from the start, had this exact idea of like the bad things happen to us because God is testing us, and the good things happen to us because God loves us. And if you read, there's this fantastic, I think, correspondence or letter series that I read once. I can't remember who was writing it, but they were looking at the permaculture that the indigenous people had done. So there was like paths and some things grew over here, and it's like, you see any people who have been in any place long enough have usually created a really elaborate agriculture system that interacts well with wilderness. So like rice paddies in China or whatever. And they're like, wow, it's like God just made a path for us. Like it didn't take 50 years of controlled burning and tilling and stone removal and stuff.
But what did the Protestants do after they gained from that? What did they do? They basically started the world's first catty fucking homeowners association, which were the witch trials. That was the witch trial.
They did HOA, man.
Yes.
I heard you delivered a baby and it didn't die.
Yeah.
Agnes is not keeping her yard mowed to the specific specifications. Burn her.
It is almost an ancient tradition for these people to be fucking small business tyrants. It's amazing.
It absolutely
The second
is.
they got here, they're like,
Read Caliban and the Witch, small business tyrants.
All I have is my name and my lawn.
Giles Corey was crushed with stones because his tall grass grew too unruly.
Well,
They were tasteful flagstones from the Sharper Image catalog.
Yeah, it was from like a Christian book. It was from like Brookstone.
Well, the last thing I want to say about this before we move on to our next topic is Mitch McConnell said this week that the first, year and a half to 2 years of Trump now, he's like, this has been the finest time of my 16 years of government for conservatism in American politics. And I 100% believe him.
Yeah.
I think we should take him at his word exactly right. This is what conservatism is from colonists to now.
Yeah, they don't have to pretend it's anything else anymore.
It is a just vicious and corrupt ideology that empowers the just cruelest and most callous people that this country has ever been capable of producing. And Donald Trump is like the perfect avatar of that.
It's amazing that they had to work so hard to cover it up for so long. That's the only way that you could imagine. I don't think that all or even most Americans are like this. I can't believe that. But I do think it's the sort of thing where the Republicans probably hurt themselves for a while by going and being like, this is actually about like opportunity. It's actually about, like our heroic small business owners or whatever. When like really what they want to do is like they want to do like whatever the fucking Laura Loomer thing where you like see a brown guy and then you make a vlog about how upsetting it is. Like that's always actually been the thing. But they had dressed it up with this whole weird, unconvincing and inconsistent ideology of like personal opportunity, small government, except for like a massive police state,